All right. Well, it's that time of the week yet again. We are here and we're going to discuss everything that is occurring in Israel. And to do
Well,
that,
everything. Hopefully
absolutely
not.
everything. We're not going to leave
No!
anything on the
No.
table. A complete and concise, day by day, blow by blow of
Minute by
all the
minute.
news coming out of Israel. And of course,
Uh,
we have Elon.
Uh,
Go ahead, Alon.
Hi everybody. Hi. Okay, so what's been burning over here? What are the things that really have grabbed the headlines and grabbed the concern over here? Well, the three things that really stuck out to me are actually the to do with Israel's relationship with the US. Now, of course, we have the Trump deal, but there are some concerns here, and in the way that it affects Israel's ability to operate independently, and whether we're actually getting funneled into a situation that we might be less than ideal. So, for example, this was from Israel Hayom, and it was saying the Trump deal traps Israel as Hamas breaks the rules. Because, of course, you might be aware that already, well, Hamas have violated the agreement multiple times already. They've not returned the hostages, all of them, because, of course, there are still some hostages who've been murdered. Their remains need to be returned. But also, of course, they've shot up at Israeli soldiers and killed at least three. And so, what what this writer was saying was, he said that Israel is now in a very complicated position that will cost more Israeli lives and consists of several fronts converging together against Israel. And he said this is actually a post-war period when, though the military fighting is largely over, the other challenges, are the ones that really will affect the future. And he doubts that there'll ever be another, well, at least not in the near future, there will be another full-scale military war against Hamas. That won't happen, he says. But um, because the cessation of the war is considered to be one of President Trump's big achievements internationally and in domestic politics in America, there's very little chance that Donald Trump would want to let this thing fall apart. So, then he goes on to mention that Hamas are systematically violating the ceasefire in just about every possible way, almost. Of course, what I've just mentioned, refusing to return the deceased hostages and also fallen soldiers' bodies. And they're also tightening their control over Western Gaza and rehabilitating their terror infrastructure. Of course, all of these things violate the 20-point plan because they're supposed to be disarmed. But, he also says, look, though, President Trump would, of course, wants his agreement to stay together. This correspondent asks, well, what more can Israel actually do to dismantle Hamas that we haven't already done? In the past 2 years since October the 7th, Um, even in Rafah, which was, we basically flattened it almost to ground level. This is where the three soldiers were killed in the last 2 weeks. That military destruction is not sufficient to rectify this problem because of the Hamas ideology, which is deeply embedded in the whole Gaza population, apart from a very small minority. So, he says that basically, I mean, Israel is in a position now where, America doesn't want to put US Marines in there. So who else do we put in there? Because, Israel's hands are tied somewhat because we're not allowed now to uh, the same operational freedom. Well, he says, could it be Turkey? Well, no, nobody wants Israel absolutely doesn't want someone like Turkey in there or Qatar or anybody like that, because of course these people are cultivating and encouraging and supplying Hamas. So, who would replace the other thing is, of course, Turkey and Qatar are also signatories to the agreement, but we certainly don't want them in there militarily because they're treacherous and deceitful. And then he says there's the UN. This is another complicated thing because even though the US has protected Israel in many ways in the UN, if there's a UN resolution in this area regarding Gaza, even if the Trump administration gets something that's acceptable to Israel that we could live with, you'll get people like Britain and France and certain Arab states that want to add in other provisions that could make it onerous and difficult. So this is a problem, and he concludes. He says there's four fronts converging together. He said, creating a dead end where Israel is stuck, unable to resume the war, failing to stop Hamas violations, and encountering difficulties again establishing an international force, and also, of course, pressure from the UN Security Council. So this doesn't look like a very good situation from this writer's perspective.
I just wanted to ask you, in your opinion, Elon, is this more posturing than really giving a chance for peace? Is the Trump peace plan merely just like a small cessation to give him a little bit of prestige rather than actually affecting true peace? In your opinion?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I do believe that President Trump does want to leave a political legacy and a diplomatic legacy that is good. I mean, I think but maybe also there's a little bit of vanity in there as well. I mean, the Nobel Peace Prize, kind of things like that. And at the end of the administration, of course, you don't want to, have a series of duds, that things that have all fallen apart. And so, I mean, you want to look good at the end, of course, 'cause of course, the electorate appreciate it when, it looks like there are positive achievements. So maybe there's a bit of both. I mean, I do believe that obviously it's ideal that there isn't a war in the Middle East, that there isn't this mess that goes on and on and on. But so I'm sure that there's a genuine intention there. But at the same time, probably there's a hard at the back of it all. There's a realistic kind of thought that, well, this thing might be a bit shaky. I mean, it would probably be. Maybe there's a bit of wishful thinking as well. I mean, you're dealing with Hamas and also the Muslim Brotherhood and all this kind of other stuff mixed in with this.
I
So
mean,
realistically, a long-term peace, I think. Well, we know biblically it isn't going to happen. At least not, at least not for very long. Anyway, such things won't last. I don't think. Go on, carry on, Jay.
I was about to say to your point though, I mean, wouldn't a serious peace plan involve perhaps Turkey, who wants to be so involved? Wouldn't it involve maybe taking some of the most vulnerable in Gaza and maybe putting them in, I don't know, Turkish territory? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I'm sure that.
Syria right there, and Syria
Yeah, but
is
the thing.
is very much Turkey's dominion.
Yeah, but you understand the reason why they've had this Palestinian refugee problem for like 80 years or whatever is because let's face it, most of these people that they call themselves Palestinians originally came from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, maybe the Lebanon a little bit, and some of the surrounding areas. That's where they all came from. They're not native to the region. There's never been an Arabic Palestine in that sense. So, but after the War of Independence, of course, they were deliberately not allowed back into the surrounding countries. They stopped them. They wanted to keep them there as a thorn in the side of the state of Israel, eternally almost, if from their perspective, and that's what they've been. And they've nurtured the resentment and the hatred and the murderous intentions for decades. So and the thing is now, nobody else wants them. I mean, Turkey certainly doesn't want them either. I mean, because they know what this the Palestinian entity has become. Um, when they got into the Lebanon in because of that, they got the Lebanese civil war and the atrocities that the PLO did there. I mean, of course, you remember the Black September thing in Jordan,
Yes.
you know, all of this. So that, they created an entity that nobody wants in their home country. And of course, it's much more useful to have them destabilizing, Israel's security. So, you know, yeah, the Turks would be crazy to want them in Turkey. I mean, and they're much more useful to Turkey, of course, destabilizing Israel because I mean, Turkey
Israel.
hates
Oh.
Israel, wants to destroy us anyway. They've made no secret of that, and they have ambitions to make everywhere, a new Ottoman Empire. So,
See, and that's what makes it so troubling that Trump would allow them in his peace plan. Why? It. I mean, it's to me, it's like adding unnecessary unnecessary heat to something that can easily fall apart. You're adding a player that is completely biased, that will not serve the peace
yes,
process in any way.
Well, he did
yeah,
that, it's unfortunate that some of the problems that are caused now are some of these signatories who are basically not supporting the what's in the agreement is for Hamas to lay down their arms, and they're saying
yes,
no, we don't want them to lay down their arms. I mean,
yes,
man, that's
yeah.
causing a
I
lot of
mean,
problems right there.
this is extreme. This is one of the things I do not understand. I mean, understand about this agreement. What on earth are Qatar doing in it? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they're the bankrollers of the Muslim Brotherhood. And why on earth are Qatar being given an air training base in the US? It sounds crazy. I really, really don't understand the thinking behind that. I really don't. You know, um,
I don't know if
I,
there is
I
thinking.
I don't know. I just think sometimes Trump is taken in by personal relationships, and these guys will promise him something, just like Chi, same thing. And he
yeah,
trusts them when he shouldn't be trusting them, you know, and
yes,
especially some of these nations that signed on to that, they're not trustworthy at all. They always go back on
mm,
their word, you know?
mm, yes, yeah.
Who
It does seem a bit strange, but yeah.
which country gave Trump a new plane? Was
Oh, that
that
was
Qatar.
Qatar.
Yep.
Tower.
That was
oh
Qatar. Yeah,
a
yeah. But I don't
a
think
plane
Trump was
for
fooled by that actually.
okay.
You know,
No,
I don't.
he just, you know, who's going to down a free plane?
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think sometimes he, there are some times when you think possibly he might occasionally be naive, but I don't think Donald Trump is stupid at all. I think he's very clever actually, and very. But I think sometimes he's over optimistic about certain things. But you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway,
Can I say a comment?
Oh, please do, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Trump, the President Trump, I respect him in a lot of ways, but I really don't think he understands the devilish or satanic nature of the enemies that hate Israel.
yeah,
And historically, where
yes,
that stems from. And until he sees that, he can have this pie in the sky hope and dream that they'll be motivated by peace, by money, by lots of business. And in Trump world, that works 99% of the time, but not in the Middle East, not with these
Right.
intractable enemies against Israel.
I totally
yes.
It's
agree.
destined to fail. It's destined to fail from the beginning.
Yes, I think ultimately, and of course, the uh, Islam is very capable of presenting itself as something
Yeah.
more what's the word?
Western.
more. Yes, it's very good at disguising itself. You know, this whole thing of takia, the deception in order to gain strategic advantage, is endemic, you know, to the whole religion. So maybe that, you know,
Wait. Are you saying the religion of peace might use deception? Come
well,
on.
yeah. Well, it's certainly done it in the UK, that's for sure, and in parts of Europe. But then, you know, oh, so shall we move on to the next item? Do you want to go on to the next item?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We want
so
this to be
this is
comprehensive.
so the next big, of course, this is all connected, of course. This was someone, a correspondent writing about Israel's concern that it's basically becoming a US protectorate. Um, you know, that he's saying that it looks like, you know, after during the Gaza war, the Iran war, and now in this ceasefire, it appears that Israel is losing its freedom to maneuver as Washington takes the wheel, as he puts it.
Mhm.
And he gives 4 points showing how Israel seems to have become America's 51st state. Now, I thought that was Canada, but um, um, yeah, because he reports that of course the US has stood by Israel in a very great way. Well, certainly after Biden went anyway, um, you know, with munitions and other kinds of diplomatic support as well. But so I mean, we're indebted, you know, in that sense, and we're very grateful for that. But you know, there was a after the Doha elimination in Doha of the Hamas leadership, that marked a turning point. This correspondent says, and they're calling it now what the Israeli officials call this now the American handbrake. In other words, that the US is putting putting the brakes on certain things, and so what he says was that. Let me just find it was quite a long. Find it. Here we go. First of all, this was noticeable during the Iran war, where you know, President Trump began direct talks with Tehran, contrary to, you know, our position here, and announced it even while Netanyahu was visiting the White House. So, you know, you can, to some extent, of course, this would not. I don't think this would please Netanyahu that much in the middle of a war. But you know, it's like, you know, President Trump was acting over the head of Netanyahu, and it might have felt that that was compromising us in our conflict with Iran. Of course, then there was of course, the Doha incident, and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff described our elimination of the Hamas leadership as a kind of betrayal, and it upset Qatar, of course, because they withdrew from mediation efforts and everything. So, and you know, Netanyahu was basically pressured into apologizing to Qatar in a three-way phone call, I think. Of course, then there is the thing of President Trump saying he would absolutely not allow Israel to apply sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. So, you know, you can see already, of course, and even the deal with the ceasefire deal there was a lot of American pressure in that, and of course, there's this phased with Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, from certain areas. So, and also there's been a restraining hand of course, when Israeli soldiers have recently been killed by Hamas violations of the agreement. So there's that, and then he closes this saying that, you know, despite the initial wave of global sympathy, Israel grows increasingly isolated as the war dragged on. But even with its closest European allies turning up the pressure now, but the US has blocked resolutions against Israel at the UN, six times during the war. It says at least as the lone opposing vote. But without this umbrella of protection from in the UN and also from the International Criminal Court at The Hague, Israel would have been much more isolated. And it's made us we become, this writer is concerned that we become much more dependent on America and also much more, what's the word, restrained, that we've been kind of leashed from doing, and our operational freedom has been somewhat compromised. So that's a concern that is being voiced here.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was an attack on some Israeli soldiers, and I did see that Israel did
Yeah.
respond, and
Yes.
I take it that the U.S. basically intervened so that they could not effectively
Yes.
reignite
Neutralize.
conflict.
Yeah.
Yes. We weren't allowed to tear up the agreement completely and just throw it in the bin, So, um, yeah. So
But wouldn't a violation of a peace kind of mean that you should tear up
yeah,
a bad agreement?
Yeah.
you would
Yes.
think so. Yes, but I think
Yeah.
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 But
A peace agreement. Oh, Thomas, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, carry on, Steve. It's okay.
I
No,
mean,
go
the
for it.
essentials of a peace agreement, if each side's given consideration, it's contractual. One side breaches, it's as old as common law that the other side can break it or cancel it
Yes.
because the other side broke it over an essential term, and that was an essential
Yeah.
term from the very
Yes.
beginning. And so,
Yes.
what do what what are we thinking? The U.S. What
Yes.
are we thinking?
Yeah.
Why is life so cheap? Why is Jewish life so cheap in some people's eyes that soldiers can be murdered, and it doesn't take away the fact that a peace that you've constructed is more important than those lives. Those are those are people who have family members who are mourning, who are grieving, and their lives mean nothing. It's sick.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, literally, you could say that Hamas are being allowed to get away with murder in this. Literally, but I think this is where pragmatism is running the show a little bit, I think, and it's well, you just have to. I think there probably is maybe there's a certain amount of tolerance being allowed. Um, and how far will they go before we are, we consider the agreement thoroughly and absolutely broken beyond repair? That's probably, we
Well,
shall see.
to, to follow up, Elon, I mean, how long will it take Israel to realize that they can't be a Guam of the United States? They can't be a territory or a protectorate. It's not going to work. They can't be
No, no,
shielded from the UN
Yeah.
forever.
yes, I mean, we don't. Yeah, I mean, this actually brings us to the next point, you
Ah,
know,
good
which
segue.
is this segues into the next point, which was, I mean, this kind of surprised me when I saw this. I thought, well, wow, that's somewhat strong. And this writer, is it Dror Edar, was writing about the uh, f- well, basically his concerns about Zohran Mandani, the
Mm.
this candidate for the mayor of New York, and he was saying that anti-Semitic and anti-Israel discourse is spreading out. He said not only in Europe but also in the US, and not only among Democrats but also among Republicans. I mean, we could mention here Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. All of this, they are influential. Even if we think they're crazy, they are influential. And no, not the only ones, of course. But and he writes that while Europe is being taken over before our very eyes, and Israel's and the Jewish people's enemies are seizing key positions there, of course they are. You remember, of course, in the UK you've got a Home Secretary and a Home and a Home Office that's full of them, of jihadis basically. Anyway, we are about to be told of a similar takeover in the world's largest Jewish city, New York. The leading candidate for mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is an extreme Muslim, anti-Israel figure who holds semi-communist socialist ideas. The Democrats are concentrating efforts for his victory in the hope it will help their return to power. Either way, in the years ahead, we will see in New York scenes similar to those we saw in London, Paris, Brussels, Stockholm, and Turin. I hope that doesn't happen, actually, but this is his concerns. He said the average liberal in New York is offended by mixing ethnic, religious, and cultural considerations into political choice, but Europe demonstrates that these considerations are central. Western liberalism no longer protects society from those who exploit freedom and human rights in order to undermine it. And then he talks about how you can't talk about Mamdani's extreme Islam without being suspected of racism and Islamophobia. And this is the political correctness is what the left has been using to neutralize those people who are giving alarm about these things. But
I wonder how I wonder how long it's going to take until racism has no meaning with the way that
yeah,
everyone is labeled racist. It's going to
yes.
become a word that just doesn't mean anything soon.
I think it's already meaningless because people use it, for example, against those who criticize Islam. But of course, Islam isn't a race; it's a political ideology masquerading as a religion. And but no, this guy, but anyway, this chap is saying that because of these significant voices and arising against Jews and Israel on the Republican side as well. There's a separatist movement within the Republican side that wants to sever, the relationship between Israel and the US and destroy and put an end to that partnership. Um, and hang on. And it says, even though, for example, he talks of evangelicals, Christian Zionists, whose support so far for Israel has been very steady and solid, but yet, there's a shift taking place among the young people who've been exposed within the evangelical movement, who've been exposed to anti-Israel propaganda rooted in anti-Semitism. And then he critiques Israel's response to this, that for most part, Israel has not really done anything about this and has kind of given up on it, on really. But whereas Qatar and Saudi Arabia and others have been investing, literally billions into university and educational facilities to push the anti-Israel message, and there is. And he says that Mandani is an actual product of that activity. Um, and there's a younger generation in the evangelical movement that's being more and more exposed to all of this anti-Israel propaganda, blatant lies, but Israel isn't
Mhm.
involving itself. And he says, if we don't do something, he says, really, and start to invest in influencing, even in the evangelical movement that's in the past been pro-Israel, um, that we will lose the battle for global consciousness, as he puts it here. And if we don't invest in this, may one day wake up to an American president named Zohran Mamdani. You know, um, we don't know for sure how long the current climate in the US will remain favorable towards Israel. And I know people are
Well,
sick to death now. Sorry, carry on. Yeah, go on.
one of the problems um, is what's called replacement theology, and it's
Yes.
made its way through a lot of Christendom. Where America replaces, we're now God's nation and all this, and they take all these promises for Israel out of Isaiah and other places and apply them directly to the U.S. This is what Jonathan Cahn has been doing, and many
Yes.
others. And it's
Yeah.
absolutely dangerous because it's basically making people, Christians, think that we shouldn't be supporting the nation of Israel because it's not really
Yeah.
God's people anymore. I mean, that's
Yes.
basically what's kind of running through a lot of places now, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely agree. Yeah. And I think some of this is also is people's attitude towards biblical prophecy. And you've got the preterist movement is also growing a lot.
Yeah.
And why do and a lot of young people also, I think, have been turned off prophecy, biblical prophecy and the study of it, not just by preterism, but I mean, I think to some extent the Left Behind movement, the pre-tribulational movement, has because of its
Yeah.
sensationalism and tendency to say stupid things. I think it's turned a lot of young people off because they
Yes,
associate
yes.
support for Israel with the pre-trib loonies. I mean, I'm talking about the
Unfortunately,
extreme pre-trib here, not the more kind of based people.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, you're right about the preterism, but a lot of this comes from uh, basically reformed churches.
Yes,
You
Yeah.
know, it's you know it's preterism along with amillennialism, like we're already living in the millennium, or post-millennialism. Both of those
Mhm.
things, are
Yeah.
equally as bad. And then
Yeah.
yeah,
on top of that, you also have this idea that we're God's chosen people, from Calvinism, you know, God,
yes,
we're the elect ones, we're special. And then, of course, then on top of that, you're correct about the pre-trib thing. It's making people, they're not looking at biblical prophecy the same way that it has been interpreted for a long, long time.
yes. You have to look at someone like J.D. Farag.
Yes.
The rapture's next week. Oh, it's a week after, or all this kind of stuff. You know, it's damaged, I think. I mean, it really has worked to damage um, serious study of
Yes.
biblical
Well,
prophecy.
and the thing is, if you really buy into that strongly, which I was very disappointed when Calvary Chapel made pre-trib part of their doctrinal statement, because should
Yes.
not be in a doctrinal
Yeah,
statement.
absolutely.
Something that
Absolutely.
we as Christians can debate about. That's fine. But you know, we got a whole generation of people who are looking to be out of here. They're not concerned about, what happens to Israel. They're not happen what happens with the Antichrist and everything with prophecy. They're not concerned about that because we'll be out of here. We're out of here.
Yes.
And that to me is absolutely the dangerous part of that idea. And it's gotten
Mhm.
worse because they've added other things into it, the rapture of
Yeah.
the wicked, other kind of weird stuff. But
Yes.
um, you're absolutely right, Elon.
Um, how do replacement theology and the preterists and the anti-Israel brigade get past Romans 11:28? And I'll just read it. As for the gospel is concerned, they are enemies for your sake. But as far as election is concerned, they are loved on the account of their fathers, the patriarchs. How do they get around that to say that Israel is no longer within God's plan and is shifted to the US or to the church
Yep.
when you have it plainly right there? So plainly right there that they're still beloved.
They ignore it.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Yep.
You got these
Just
false
gloss over it and move
prophets.
on.
It's these false prophets. We got false prophets all over the place. And Jonathan Cahn is one of them, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, he's
Yeah.
he's he was absolutely saying that certain passages of in Isaiah were absolutely about America. And I'm going like, when was America actually a Christian nation? Yes, we've been
Yeah.
following Judeo-Christian principles and things like that, but hey, America has not been perfect, and now it's
I
heading
mean,
totally in the wrong direction.
I mean, everything is said in his name, Jonathan Kahn.
Right.
Right.
And Sandy, can I ask you a question? And
Sure.
and those and those aberrant doctrinal beliefs that are essentially anti Israel, um, that in effect has has impacted greatly, our politics and
Yeah.
and even the MAGA supporters to a large degree,
Yeah.
and a lot of Christians um, that I've noticed, and then these are sincere Christians. There is somewhat um, a Trump worship, and they're not gonna
Mm.
look into these questions. And it doesn't matter what's happening in Israel, what the president's doing that may be definitely detrimental to Israel, and all the arguments that you can make, and the people that he's appointing to office, like the
Yeah.
faith office, they're not gonna. They're
Yeah.
so caught up in what they believe, and there's no room for anyone, and you, to look at the Bible and question this NAR beliefs, which has
Uh,
in fact
that's
infected our administration.
You've hit that on
Yes.
the head. It's all NAR. This is dominionism. And he
Yep,
and Trump is their guy,
yep,
He's gonna
yep,
we're going to take over we're gonna take over the world. We're gonna change everything politically and in every way. We're inhabiting all the businesses and everything. We're gonna
yep.
Christianize the whole world, which is a
Right.
bunch of bunk. And when the Bible
Yep.
talks about the woman who rides the beast, that's exactly what's going on. We've got a harlot
Yep.
trying to ride the beast of the
Yep.
world, and she is going to get wiped out. You know,
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, the Antichrist is going to turn around and not just persecute the Jews, but Christians as well.
Well, yeah.
In
Yep.
the end, try to kill them all.
Yes. When I've seen some comments sometime, of course, I watch a lot of stuff on X. I'm always trawling through there to see what's going on. I've seen even believers, they appear to be genuine Bible believers. Some of them have got a very anti-Israel
Yep.
slant, and
Yeah,
they're trolling on prophecy subjects and things like that.
yep.
And it's very sad actually. And sometimes the real venom behind it as well. And they do appear to be evangelical, but they've really got to be in their bonnet
Yes.
about Israel. And I see a lot of preterism and
Well,
as well in mixed in with that. They're really keen on that.
bottom line, this is Satanic's dominion that we
Yes.
live in. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Satan, this is his plan. He's got a
Yep.
plan going, and it's
Yeah.
basically to bring all the nations against the Jews eventually. And
Yeah.
how a certain percentage of our nation is already there
Yep.
and turning more and more. And if you get somebody like Mondani and some of these people in there, who,
Woo.
by the way,
Woo.
really angers me. It's like his smile. He's got this smile like we're we're gonna we're finally gonna get our comeuppance and take over this city that we tried to that we've been trying to take over all this time. It's so obvious what they're doing.
Yes.
Um, but Americans are just really I'm going, where's the Jewish vote in New York? I would never,
Yes.
there's no way I could ever vote. If I was a Jew, I could not vote for that guy because
Yeah.
he's radically anti-Israel.
Yes, actually, one of they had the recent Zionist annual conference, I think it is, and they were actually calling on because there's quite a large Israeli population in New York apparently, and they're saying you need to get out there and you need to vote so that this guy doesn't get in because if he does, you're going to have some really serious problems. It will be like London is at the moment now for Jews, but worse.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, because I think Zamdani will be even worse than Sadiq Khan. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
Sadiq
Yeah.
Khan is a reprehensible, deceitful man And he's clearly, he's wrecked London basically and turned it over to jihadis. And I think
Yeah.
it will be even worse in New York if this guy gets in. I think he's worse than Sadiq Khan.
Sandy
Yes.
and Elon, can I ask you a question? You guys know more than me on this. Do you see any real difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism? People may say that, well, I'm just against the way the governments there run in Israel, but I don't believe that. But I think it's underneath that there is that kind of despising of the Jews, anti-Semitism. What do you guys think?
I think they're almost synonymous. I mean, on the whole, it's something like about 90% of Jews are, on the whole, Zionist in tendency. They believe in a homeland for the Jewish people. So when you say you're anti-Zionist, but you're not anti-Jewish, you're really anti 90% of Jews, So there's statistically there's very little difference. And usually you find underneath it all, if you scrape away at the anti-Zionist label, you'll find underneath it, anti-Semitism. They're nearly always
I
related.
would say if you dig under the surface of most anti-Zionists, you're going to find Holocaust deniers at the very core.
Yes, very probably that as well. Yeah. I mean, it really it's just a camouflage for
You
Jew
know,
hatred.
how can you be such a conspiracy nut to think that the Holocaust didn't happen? What is your
Yeah,
problem? I mean,
yeah,
facts are all there.
Yeah.
And, what are they going to also deny that Stalin killed like 20 to 50 million Russians and Mao
Um,
Zedong killed up to 75 million? I mean, it's
yes,
come on, the facts are just the facts. And
yeah.
Inescapable.
no, no, we I don't believe anybody went to the moon and the earth is flat.
yes,
I mean,
yeah, with all that as well.
where
Yeah,
did where do these
All
people
right.
crawl out of? It's just be I don't understand that kind of thinking at all.
No.
All right. And with that, I think we've been very comprehensive on this week's Israel Report. We hope you have enjoyed. Till next time, God bless.